Hello again, this is Jonathan at the piano lesson. How you guys doing? It's been about a week, and I want to maybe pick up kind of where I left off last week. We were talking about chords. I was kind of getting into some aspects of chords that are a little more advanced, a little more into the weeds. So I thought I'd pick up with that. If you missed last week, well, you just go back and take a look what I did last week, and you'll find out. But what we were talking about was the idea of what we call slash chords and then onto polychords. So what's a slash chord? Well, it's really just semantics. It's just another way of expressing, say, a more complicated chord in a little bit more of a simpler way. So let me just show you what I mean, for instance. Let's just take this chord, okay? C, E, G, B flat, all right? D, F, A, all right? That's a lot of notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 7 notes, okay? So we have the root, 3rd, 5th, flatted 7th, 9th, 11th, and 13. Now, if I was going to write that out, I might write it out like this. I might write out C7, and then in parentheses, I might have 9, 11, 13. All right, that's one way to write it out. But here's a little bit more, a little bit of a shortcut. If you look at the notes in the chord, all right, the top part of the chord, B flat, D, F, A, that's a chord by itself in a sense, all right? So rather than saying that, we could also say that forms B flat major 7. B flat major 7 slash, there's your slash, and then the bass note, C, okay? And I know that all of the notes in the C7 chord are part of the overall chord. If you notice the difference, though, by the way, when I put in the 5th and the 3rd, I kind of leave that out. So here's a little note that you won't see. Omit 3 and 5, okay? Sometimes we see the word omit, and I think that's a little bit of a better sound. But you could have the E, you could have the G. It just you just have to kind of use your ears. But just having a plain old C and maybe having the C down low on the piano. So don't be afraid to experiment a bit and mess around. You know, you have to kind of finesse these things. Now, let's just take a look. If I look at all the notes in the chord, if I get rid of the A, okay, now there's G minor 7, G, B flat, D, F. Similar idea, I could express it that way. So G minor 7 slash C. There's an idea for you, okay? That's the same as saying C7 with an added 9th or 11th. And another way to write it is just say simply C11. Okay, that's enough, but typically we won't have the 3rd. I mean, listen to that sound. That you really don't want that. You could have the 5th, or just by itself. In fact, another way to think about this, okay, is to simply say, take the top part of it, B flat slash C, and that's enough as well, okay? My idea of practicing, you take a simple idea, maybe this isn't so simple, but it's you take an idea and you approach it in a variety of different ways. Why would you want to do that? Well, you learn it better, okay? Also, some people learn things differently than others, for sure, and the more ways that you have to learn something, the more secure you'll be in it, and also the more versatile the concept will be in the real world. You can't just learn something in a very rigid way and expect it to work all the time. It has to be adapted and modified. So I'm all talking about the same basic thing, okay? Describing in different ways. These are things, this is something you come to after years of playing, and you've been in a variety of different situations, and you kind of start to piece things together. All of what I'm talking about here, I'm basically talking about the same group of notes, okay? Now, And I will just very quickly, for those that are curious, I'll kind of just write it out here, okay? So we'll just in bass clef, you got your root, let's say. So there's your C, okay? And then let's just say we won't use the third. We'll just use G, B flat, D, F, G, B flat, D, F, okay? And we could even use A as well. All right, so that's kind of what that C11 chord looks like. Or again, you know, you say B flat major 7 / C, okay? How do I know that's not an inversion? Because we use the slash to describe inversions. For instance, if I went if I drew let's say B flat, right, / D, all right, that's clearly an inversion. That's this chord in first inversion. Well, I know because there is a D in the B flat. There is no C in the B flat. All right, and that's how you tell the difference when you're reading chords. You need to know a little bit about the chord itself to understand what the slash actually means. There's a cool tune that kind of uses this sound. Milestones. By the way, you know, there's two Milestones. There's an old and a new Milestones. I won't get into the old Milestones, but the new Milestones, Miles tune. You have that's this chord. That's this 11 chord, and I'm playing the right hand on count 1 and the left hand on count 2 is what we call a pedal tone, P-E-D-A-L, repeated note on beat 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And notice I'm holding down one note with my pinky and I'm repeating the note then with another. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm getting more sound by holding that pinky down, because every time I play the note, I'm going to hold it down silently. Every time I play the note with my thumb, I don't know if you can hear those overtones in the piano that's coming from that low note. Even if I hold it down, I don't want to keep doing that necessarily. I could do that, but it's a little overbearing. It's a little bit too much. I don't want to do. I could do that, but I prefer maybe the first time. Octave, thumb. So I can use that octave as the initial accent and then do that periodically every, say, 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm doing that every 2 measures. And it structurally, you can hear every segment of 2 bars, and then 2 plus 2 is 4, and there's your phrase, and then 4 plus 4 is 4 plus 4, floor plus floor. Good God, 4 plus 4 is talk slower. Yeah, I think it's the mango orange juice I had before this. I'm all hopped up. The 8 measures is also a phrase. It's often referred to as a period. Some music theory books refer to as that: a segment, a phrase, a period, kind of little Russian nesting dolls, okay, kind of fitting in. Or I don't think there are Ukrainian dolls. Are there Ukrainian dolls? I don't know. Write in and tell me. And this kind of leads me on to something else, and that is that no matter how many chords you know, chords are great to know, but what's really more important is how do they function to make music, you know, like a piece in a jigsaw puzzle. Well, typically, when I see this G minor chord, now, by itself, in isolation, it's a G minor 7 chord. With the C in the bass, it changes. The root changes that whole perspective, and it now becomes basically a C7 chord with an added ninth and 11th. The G minor immediately comes to mind. G minor, that's minor chord, minor 7th chord, typically the second diatonic 7th chord in a scale. So as an example, there's a B flat here. I'm using the notes of the F major scale, all right? And but I'm actually starting. I am reframing or reorganizing those into a mode that's referred to as mixolydian. It's like a major scale with a flatted 7th. So two ways to think about it. C is the 5th note of the F major scale, or you could think of the 7th note in the scale in the key of C as being flatted. Okay, one is a relative concept, the other is a parallel concept, right? The parallel being the lining up all the C scales in the world and comparing them, okay, as opposed to comparing the notes of this particular scale to another scale that shares the precise same notes, right? That's the relative concept. When I learn scales, and you've heard me talk about this many times, and I'm sure a lot of you know about it, taking a scale and slicing it up into chords. Those are triads. Those are diatonic triads. Same idea with 4-note chords, going up the scale with diatonic triads. So in the real world, when you're playing, you understand the context of the chord, right? Not just the chord itself. That gives you a bigger perspective. So our milestones, maybe I should give you an above perspective. So that was 2A sections. Now the bridge. You know what? I'm going to just do that bridge one more time for you guys because I made a little fudge there, and I'm not too proud to do it over. Okay, here we go. That's it. It's been a while since I played it. One, two, three, four. So there's an instance where you have a tune. You're using your diatonic chords, okay, all the way through. I don't want to take up too much time and play the whole thing. It is a modal song, so there's not much of a melody to it, right? And you know, the interesting thing about modal music, because in modal music we're kind of minimizing one aspect of composition, and that aspect is melody. In this instance, there's enough of a melody that can keep you interested. It's not completely out to lunch, you know. But keep in mind that as a musician and an improviser, once you minimize one aspect of the composition, right, the other elements of the composition, right, have to come to the fore. Just as if, let's say, you know, you put blindfolds on and you didn't use sight, right? You'd start hearing better, and your sense of touch would become more acute, possibly. So the other elements of the composition, the rhythmic aspects, different than rhythm, right? Rhythm is just the literal length of the notes, but the rhythmic aspect, how those notes are phrased and accented and combined, all right? The textural aspects, the timbre, tone color, which is like a clarinet has a different timbre, right, than a trumpet. They could be playing the same notes, but they have a different kind of, you know, fingerprint. and that happens when you use different voicings when you're voicing a chord. What other elements? Well, the bass line, of course, the harmonic elements, all those things can be emphasized, since now you've de-emphasized another element. So it's not like you're not off the hook, is my point. And, there are some other more interesting ways to play these voicings, or other alternatives. For instance, here's a way to play the same voicing, right? I think of this as G minor 7. If I think of it as G minor 7 with C in the bass, well, I could also think of it as G minor 7 with an added ninth, right? And that ninth would be this note, and I would put that note down here, okay? And I would get rid of the G. I would take the notes I have up here, the 7th and the ninth. I would bring them down here, and I would get rid of the G. That's what we call close position. Sounds totally different, doesn't it? This is G minor 7 with an added ninth. This is A minor. This is B flat major 7 with an added ninth. There's no B flat in here, right? And there's no A in here, right? If you watch my videos on rootless voicings, there's two basic ways that I talk about voicing chords, and one of those ways, when we're talking about rootless voicings, a chord without a root. So, as an example, A in the bass, C, E, G, B. The C, E, G, B. I call that rootless because there's no root in the right hand, right? There's a root in the left hand. I call that open position because the notes are all evenly spread out. Or if I take the top two notes and bring them down, I'll show you what that looks like. I call that close position. So open, take top two notes down, close, right? Those are the two ways you start learning in the open position. And then once you get comfortable with that, then you can start doing the close position. Right. Those are pretty nice voicings. They're much more dense, and you have to be careful, have to be mindful of where you play them on the piano. So, if you're playing them right, kind of around middle C, they sound fine. If you get too low, then they can start to sound kind of muddy. That's not too bad though, really. Down that low, that's not terrible. Typically, you would hear, very often pianists like to use rootless voicing because they have a bass player, and they're playing in the left hand, and the bass player is playing down here. Yeah, I just want to clear up one thing, by the way, piano players. When you're playing bass and you're playing walking bass, let me just for the record, okay? When we use the word bass, we're talking about starting from here, this E on the piano, right? A lot of you guys might know this, but a bass, an upright bass, has 4 strings: E, up a fourth to A, up a fourth to D, up a fourth to G, all right? That is the basic range of the bass, and pretty much right around there, that's where a bass player plays. Now, it's possible to go as low as C, right? Some bass players have what are called an extension, a C extension. And I know guys, I guess, who play 5-string bass, they'll tune that 5th string to a low note below the E. They'll tune it to a B, so it's a 4th below. When you start tuning notes that low, they become kind of hard to hear. There are pianos. There's one piano, the Imperial Grand, the Bösendorfer Imperial Grand. I believe it's German piano. It has an extra octave. That's where the white keys are black and the black keys are white. And Oscar Peterson loved that piano. I can promise you, if you actually play those notes, you almost cannot hear them. They're there just to help the piano in terms of sympathetic overtones, and also are just structurally, as you get lower in a piano, the strings get lower to the rim of the soundboard, and the rim, as it gets closer, as the soundboard gets closer to the rim, it becomes stiffer. It's harder to get tone out of that, just like on a drum, just like on the head of a drum. You get a different tone. It's harder to get tone out of by the rim than it is in the center of the drum, right? So if you want, on a piano, okay, if you want to hear these notes, if you want to hear, let's say, E, if you want to hear, E up to E, let's say, or here, right, or here, if you want to hear that, then you want the piano a bit larger, a bit longer, okay, so that the soundboard resonates properly. That's the useful area of the piano. Yes, there are more keys on it. There's 88 keys. You don't need them. And keyboard players out there who are buying keyboards, by the way, 73 keys is perfect. You do not need more than 73. It just takes up way too much room, right? The reason we have 88 notes on the piano is not because we play them. It's just to help to help the other notes speak better, to get more tone out of the notes that we typically use. Yes, you can use those other notes on the extremes. And actually, some pianos don't have 88 keys. Some pianos have only 85 keys. So those are the short scale pianos, more common in Europe. So let's say A up to A, as opposed to the highest note typically in the piano is C. Lowest note is A, highest note is C. So 85 notes on a piano is not unheard of. There's the Steinway A, the short scale. That's very desirable piano that only goes up to an A. So just pointing that out. When you're playing bass, when you're playing these low notes, these slash chords, play the bass down here. Don't play it up here, okay? There's no, or even up here. I mean, that's not too bad, but there's your bass. That's much nicer to hear that. And even what I was playing before, I was playing an E flat minor 9. That's not too bad on this piano. I mean, you can really hear that down that low. That's getting pretty low. No, that's about as low as I would go. Lowest I would go for that voicing. On this piano, every piano's a little different, right? That's the closed position. This is the open position. What we're doing here. Or rather. That's not bad. That's okay. That's about the limit. That's as far as I'd go. I don't know, that's getting too low there. It kind of works almost. I don't know. Well, I mean, the open position, you would think the open position would work maybe better than the close, but I don't know. So those are the slash chords. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this idea of a polychord. So the polychord, you don't hear much about polychords anymore, but that was a thing. That was a bigger thing than when I was growing up, when I was a kid. So what would a polychord be? See, D, horizontal line. See, different than if I did C. Okay, this. C major with D in the bass. This is this. And actually, it's this. It's C, E, G, D, F sharp, A. C, E, G, D, F sharp, A. That's what that is. So that's 9th, sharp, 11, 13. You do see that. And sometimes you might even see C7. So the C7 would have the B flat in it, right? And you might see that. And the advantage of those voicings, writing voicings in that manner, is that it's a little more descriptive of how you want the chord played. If you just write a very clinical C7, 9, 11, 13, that's a little more clinical than writing the slash chord or the polychord designation. Of course, you could always just write it out on paper and, with a what were those things? Oh yeah, the pencils. I used to get special pencils years ago with what they used to call electrographic lead, IBM electrographic lead. I used to get from What was it called? Gosh, it's been so long I forgot the name of the store, but there was a special store to go to in New York to get special pencils and special paper for that music copyists use. You know, every now everyone uses computers, but it's really fun to write this stuff out, and you learn a lot. So I really encourage you to just get a good old-timey pencil and paper. That's why I use the whiteboard, by the way. I mean, I'm not that much of a Luddite. I mean, I have, I have my Wacom pen, my pen, whatever, that I can use online and do stuff with, and, but I don't know. I just kind of just like the feel of this. It's like more real. It's more analog. It's more real world, and just psychologically, it just kind of feels better. It's the other stuff is you're just kind of removed from it all. I think even like typing, I think it's ruined my spelling, frankly, although I was never a great speller. But I am digressing once again. Okay. Okay, so we're going to wind it up here shortly. I'm giving you a little notice so you can gather your things, so you don't leave anything behind under the seats, because then I'll have to put them in lost and found. And last week someone left an umbrella, so whoever ever has the Mickey Mouse umbrella, please call my offices, and we're holding it for you. But I don't know. I might do a little playing, and if you have questions, please let me know. If you have a comment, that's fine too. But if you get something out of it, it would be just kind of nice to know. Okay, so let's just do a little playing here. At the piano lesson. Have a good week, guys. See you next week.